What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Hopefully, if you're watching this video, you have seen Nope and you're ready to talk spoilers, because today I'm giving you my interpretation of what certain storylines mean. I'm going to try my best to decipher what the shoe is all about, because I know that is the big question. That was the biggest question I had walking out of the theater, and it's taken me 3 to 4 days to decipher. I'm not sure when I'm uploading this, but to decipher what in the world I watch with certain things about this film. So we're going to get into it right now. You're probably thinking to yourself, Austin, get on with it, man. Well, if you like this video, be sure to check out my spoiler-free review, and I ranked the Jordan Peele movies on this channel. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be awesome. But let's get into this film and talk about the two major storylines going on, starting on the easier side of things with OJ and his sister. Kaluuya plays OJ, Keke Palmer plays Emerald. They're just a brother-sister duo that have been in the game for a long time. Great grandfather was one of the first to do it in Hollywood. They're just trying to make the best of it, and the first big gig that they get in the movie doesn't quite work out. Part of that could be Keith David, who plays Otis, who plays their father, did, of course, pass away at the beginning of this movie by some unexplained phenomenon. OJ talks about a bad miracle. What is a bad miracle? Now, that's a big line that's going to come into play when we get into the other storyline, but because of this, they are on their own. And when they realize they can get the money shot, they can capture the alien on camera, whether that be a video or a picture, and a picture is all they get at the end of the day, they are going to do what it takes. Emerald, she is hesitant at first. She says, bro, I don't know if I want to follow you into this situation, but she does, and they're joined by other characters that we will talk about. So that's the main story. It seems simplistic, even though there is a big metaphor there, in my opinion, and what it represents is a lot deeper. We'll talk about that. But what I want to start with, what I want to try to decipher, pick apart, and decide why it's in the film in the first place is Steven Yeun's character in Ricky Park, aka Jupe. Jupe is someone who fascinated me the first time we were introduced, right? Because when the movie was over, I said to myself, we needed more from him. Even though the chimpanzee storyline took up way more than I anticipated, that could partially be because he died halfway through the movie. And I'm thinking, why are you going to kill off a character that fascinating, that interesting, and one with a backstory that they've spent so much time on, but after that point, really after the second act, they never necessarily revisit it? Now, after thinking about it, I feel as if the movie does revisit it. Less physically, obviously, and more in the spirit of what that story represents. But you talk about the chimpanzee and you talk about Gordy. We get that flashback and it all builds up to the animal going completely insane on set during one of the shoots, something that everyone has tried to bury except for Jupe. What Jupe is attempting to do is profit off of this horrifying and frankly traumatizing experience, and you see the trauma in his eyes during the flashback, but now that he's an adult, he is making the mistake of trying to profit off of it, but also making the mistake of doing the exact same thing again later in the movie. We'll get into that. But let's start with the chimpanzee attack itself and ask the question, why does the chimp not attack Ricky? What is it about that situation that allows him to survive it completely uninjured? Because we see his co-star, well, she survived. She's there later on in the film, but she did not survive uninjured. And I believe there were 2 survivors from that incident, maybe more. I guess I need to check into that first. But what was it about Ricky that allowed him to live to be older? Well, part of it was due to the fact that he did not look the beast in the eyes. Does that sound like a familiar theme later on in the movie? Because while everyone else on set was attempting to confront the beast or look directly at it, even though that beast maybe should not have been tamed in the first place, when you try to tame a beast like that, well, inevitably there are going to be risks, and we see those risks play out. But what Ricky does is he opts to focus on something else specifically, and that's the shoe. Now, as Gordy calms down, slowly approaches him, they have that fist bump at that moment. Yes, Ricky does look at him at that point, but he's hiding his eyes when it matters, not looking at the carnage taking place. So yes, it was a traumatic experience, but it could have been significantly more traumatic if he would have looked at Gordy in the eyes during the attack, which is something that he sees as a threat. And so Gordy saw everyone on that set as a threat and did not stop. It was bloody, it was freaky, and that's frankly the end of the story, because after that, Gordy goes bye-bye. He says, see you later. So Ricky has the childhood trauma, and he has a lesson he should take with him and apply to this new situation, an apex predator, an untamed beast in this alien. An alien that he continues to confront and exploit it not only for show, but exploit it for money, just as he is exploiting the Gordy situation. He says at one point, I think someone paid like $20,000 to stay in that room for a night. And you know what? He's going to keep making that money because that's what he feels as if he is good at. So what's the next best way to make money? Well, we're going to gather everyone around to stare directly at this apex predator who feels challenged or threatened by anything that confronts it like that, just like the chimpanzee not learning from his previous mistakes, and they face the repercussions because they're all eaten by this predator. Now, the obvious parallel between the UFO and the chimpanzee storyline is the fact that the only way to survive is not looking directly at the predator, directly at the UFO, directly at the chimpanzee. So Jupe manages to avoid Gordy's eyes while hiding under the table, and later on in the movie, anytime our characters are not looking directly at this UFO, they manage to survive. At one point, a character is flying up in the sky. They look down and, well, they fall to the ground. Probably doesn't feel too good, but they're okay. The big mistake that Jupe makes, he says, I believe they trust me, talking about attempting to tame this beast or this entity. And we don't know how many times it has happened. He says it's been happening over the last 6 months, which lines up with seeing that cloud in that exact same location over the previous 6 months. But with all of the people gathered around, the music playing, it almost feels like it's paralleling that balloon pop that set Gordy off in the other storyline. Because this is the instance when the creature says, enough is enough. Everyone here is going to die. You have officially set me off. But that's great, right? We can explain that all day long, make a case for the chimpanzee storyline being there, making sense that it is there. Maybe it was pushing the metaphor a bit too far. Did it have to take up so much time? I'm not entirely sure. But the more I think about it, the more I appreciate the fact that it's there. But the question is, what about the shoe? Why is the shoe floating, standing up? OJ's talking about the UFO and talking about the loss of his father, and he labels this situation as a bad miracle, right? It's a miracle that there is this being, they don't know at that point, but there is this UFO in the sky and something that people have been, in real life, they've sought after it for years. They're trying to, in the words of our cinematographer in this movie, trying to get the perfect shot. And he goes to great lengths to get that, talking Michael Wincott's character who essentially dies because he's trying to get the perfect shot. It's hard to explain the nature of the shoe other than it taking the eyes off of Gordy, taking Ricky's eyes off of this tragic event that is inevitably what saves his life. It is, in turn, a bad miracle. This unexplained, crazy phenomenon, and it could somehow be tied to the UFO phenomenon, even though this happened years earlier than that. Maybe there were more phenomenons. I don't think that's the case. I truly believe this was a bad miracle because that, in turn, saved his life because it took his eyes off of Gordy. Okay, that's kind of a simple way to explain my thoughts on this. The shoe represents a form of protection for Ricky, and him taking that, using it for profit, exploiting the tragedy, but also exploiting the miracle of the shoe standing up is yet another parallel to him exploiting this new bad miracle, which is what OJ calls the UFO, right? So you have one bad miracle at the beginning of the movie that is exploited for money. Then you have another one that is also being exploited, but this time around, instead of looking down and making sure there's no eye contact being made with this predator, everyone looks up. And now that I think about, when did they release the title of this movie? Because this could have been called Don't Look Up. I know we got that movie last year, and Nope is a great title because there are so many moments when our characters are saying nope, so I love that. But I would have been cool if that other movie didn't exist to call this Don't Look Up because it really does apply from start to finish. Here's Here's another theme, another word that's used prominently all throughout the movie, and the word is spectacle, and we're staying with the character of Jupe. I know we've been on this the entire video, but we're going to keep it here. Jupe is using this UFO to create spectacle for the audience that he has present. He's also taking the previous tragedy and turning it into entertainment. There's an SNL skit that is referenced at the beginning of this movie, a sketch that was made after the tragedy of this chimpanzee. And this is creepy, but he describes to OJ and Emerald that this is something that keeps a person in the now and relevant, right? Even our brother-sister duo, they know him. They know all about this, right? His acting career, it never took off, but this is keeping him relevant, creating this crazy form of entertainment from this extremely violent event that inspired a Saturday Night Live sketch. And I believe there are magazine covers and all of these things that we see in that sequence. That's similar to what the Haywoods are doing later in the movie. They're attempting to capture and create this spectacle in the hope of getting rich off of it, getting that fame that they deserve and they haven't been able to achieve just yet because people, they just don't want to take them as serious as they need to as a business. So what they're doing, they are risking their lives. They're setting up cameras. They're bringing in a cinematographer. They're going through all of this madness at the end just to draw in that UFO, just to get a shot. And I called the movie a spectacle, not even thinking about the word spectacle, how it's utilized in the film, but that's essentially what it is that creates a spectacle for us as viewers. And putting all those layers on top of each other, it's a really brilliant thing that Peele was able to maybe not fully bring together seamlessly, but attempt to deliver to us as an audience. If you approach it in a very surface level way, you're probably not going to get this out of it. But once you start to think about what all of these words mean and how it ties in together, it's art that creates a discussion. And that's exactly what I've been doing all week, discussing with the people that I watched it with. Now, I do want to hit on this. It's something I started to think about when the movie ended, but I saw some really great notes from certain other critics on Twitter that kind of helped me out with this idea. So just know it's not a completely original thought. This movie does a great job of paying tribute to people in the industry that aren't often thought about when it comes to making a movie. The fact that a film crew is going to do whatever it takes, blood, sweat, and tears, to get the perfect shot to create essentially what they believe could be the perfect movie. The Haywoods risking their life to capture this UFO, and the guy screams out, "I'm about to get the perfect shot." I think it's a beautiful way to pay tribute to that. We even see Kaluuya's character wear the film crew's shirt from, what was it, Scorpion King, which is absolutely hilarious. And that, to me, is representing what an actual film crew goes through to capture something that they believe could be the perfect shot. In this case, capturing a UFO and making money, profiting off of it. There's so many great parallels, and I thought that was a great one. Here's another parallel that I think is interesting. It could add a new layer to this movie. At the beginning of the film, Emerald talks about her great-great-great-grandfather, the fact that he's a jockey who was the subject of the first assembly of photographs creating a motion picture, but that jockey is clearly not someone who is remembered on the level that they should be. So the quest in this film between our brother and sister is to record this alien and document, stamp their own piece of history, leaving their own mark in the race to discover proof of aliens, capture them on camera. They talk about the Oprah shot, having that one piece that could cement their place in history, even though their place has already been established, but no one remembers. Now, this is their quest to find proof. And I think that's a beautiful way to go about this film. Peele, he has always been a director, he's always been a writer and director that has added so many layers, and layers that I'm sure I'm not even thinking about with this spoiler talk, with this spoiler review. But the fact that you can have a third act of a movie that means about 3 to 4 different things ties into the chimpanzee storyline, which, again, it does slightly feel like a different movie. But when you start to dissect it and tear it apart, everything in this film means something. And even with the shoe, the bad miracle, that never really gets an answer at the end of the movie, you can still kind of place it and somewhat make sense of it once the movie is all over. I have talked about so much, I'm going to have to put time codes in the description because there's a lot to this movie, and I know for a fact that I missed things. I know for a fact that I missed metaphors and parallels, and that's just the kind of creator that Peele is, and maybe you didn't even respond to what this movie did, and that's okay. I don't expect everyone to enjoy this, and I'm still, questioning the fact that the chimpanzee storyline took so much time. But once I started to piece it together in my head, it did make the movie better, and in turn, making me want to see it again even more so. So that's definitely a good thing, and that's something that I need to see and hear in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video and you want to drop a like, man, that would help so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you all for being here. Stay tuned to my other reviews. We're talking Comic-Con tomorrow. It's going to be insane. You guys are the best. I'll see you soon.